Welcome everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to this week's episode of the weekly HOScale newsletter recap for March 10th, 2025. If you're new to the series, this is where we take a look at a variety of HOScale newsletters and talk about upcoming announcements or order deadlines and things. Really enjoy making these videos for you. So if you are new or if you find yourself coming back anyways, consider subscribing, completely free to you and helps me to grow the channel and make a couple dollars off the videos, so I really appreciate it. Like the video if you enjoyed as well, and drop me a comment if you're interested in anything that we talked about here today or anything I may have missed, or if you're just generally interested and just want to chat. Love talking with you guys. We'll start with ScaleTrains, and I've already moved down here to show you the paint schemes running through once again for the ScaleTrains new run of the SD7, SD7Rs, and SD9s. The pre-order deadline for these has been extended by 1 week to March 17th. So if I move down here, there's all those paint schemes and some of the details on these locomotives. I have the SD7R number 1518 on pre-order. That is the very first SD7 ever built and is currently still in service at the Illinois Railway Museum. I know we've talked about them for a couple of weeks before, but the order deadline just pushed out another week, so final option for you. And we've seen this pretty much every week for the past couple of weeks, the N-Scale GP30s, so I wonder if maybe these aren't selling quite as well as ScaleTrains hoped. But in any case, this is the Chicago Northwestern version of them in N-Scale, a little bit of history on those. If you're interested in that, I know not everybody here is in N-Scale, I personally am not, but I'll feature it here when it shows up. And there's a full list of those paint schemes, a lot of them running low on stock, but still featured here in their newsletter. And moving on to some exciting new arrivals. First up, the second batch of the CSX Heritage units. This is a batch of 3 with the ACL, the LNN, and Monon. You can see those paint schemes just above. Those recently arrived, and the next batch of those CSX Heritage schemes are slated to arrive early this summer, so there's a list of those. If you have those currently on pre-order, that's about when those should be arriving. The first 5 are still in stock as well. Probably pretty easy to find from a dealer. ScaleTrains is varied levels of stock on these from the first run. However, some locomotives that are extremely limited and very hard to find already, the CPKC GEVOs, the very first 2 painted in that new CPKC scheme. Lombard Hobbies I missed out on, and ScaleTrains is still fully reserved until March 14th. So you might be able to check then to see if pre-orders open up, but I ended up picking both of them up from Yankee Dabbler, so those are heading my way, and I'll have a review for you shortly once those arrive. Really excited for those. I was still on the fence a little bit, but I saw they were selling really quick, and I knew that eventually I wanted them, and I don't know if they'll ever redo these very first 2 locomotives in the paint scheme, so I thought they were special, so I decided to grab them. So I would definitely recommend, if you're looking for those and you're thinking about buying them now just in case they aren't made in the future. But I think it's pretty fair to say that these first 2 were extremely popular. Next up, a couple of rolling stock arrivals. First, the rivet counter PS5820 covered hopper cars, typically used for plastic pellet service. Here's some of those paint schemes going by. We got really nice marking detail and tons of marking all over the cars. These look great. There's a lot of different variety here, as you can see, in terms of just colors and markings, of course. Here's a little bit about some history on these models, as well as the full list of road names and paint schemes. And a second hopper now in stock is through the Exact Rail line in the Exact Rail Evolution series. This is the Evans 4780 covered hopper. This is more akin to the operator line from ScaleTrains, where the cost is brought down a little bit because they lack extra features like the train line hoses and cut levers, as it points out there. But still a really good model, and you can always add those in later if you really need those features. There's a look at those different paint schemes and some history on these models, as well as all those road names and paint schemes listed out there. And back now to locomotive arrivals. This is their newest run of the SD40T-2 tunnel motors, and it says it's the first time in nearly 5 years. I had no idea it had been that long, and it's pretty obvious because this run is selling out extremely fast, just like those CPKC units. I have both versions of the Rio Grande on my way from Lombard Hobbies, so I'm really excited for those. There's still a lot of the Southern Pacific paint schemes still in stock. That seems to be a little less popular than the Rio Grande, but I would definitely recommend jumping on these as soon as you can if you're able to make sure you get the one you want. Directly from ScaleTrains, most of them are sold out. There's just a couple Southern Pacific available. It's a little bit of the history on these models, how they replaced the SD45T-2s. And here's a shot of the ScaleTrains radiator section, which is the main reason I picked these over the Athearn models, because the drivetrain is completely hidden, and I really just wanted to be able to take apart the locomotive and see how they did it. So I think it's really cool. Otherwise, the Athearn models are also pretty good as well, so maybe a head-to-head coming in the future on those. Here's some additional history on the locomotives, as well as talking about some of the model-specific features and the full list of road names and paint schemes. And finally, a little update on those three models we just covered. The pre-orders for those are reserved until March 21st. So especially if you're looking to pick up some of those Rio Grande SD40T-2s, check back if you're buying from ScaleTrains after March 21st to see if pre-orders have expired for those. And a reminder on the delivery schedule. A couple N-scale models expected this week. The Trinity Reefers, that's the first run of those, as well as additional hoppers and boxcars and HO scale with exact rail. And keep an eye on those N&W Class J locomotives and the Powhatan Arrow passenger cars. Delayed a little bit, but they should be arriving the third week of March or fourth week of March, depending on shipping. So really excited to see those, as well as those Thrall High Cube double plug door boxcars in both the operator and rivet counter lines. But that's all we have from ScaleTrains for this week. We'll move on now over to Rapido. All right, welcome on over to Rapido's newsletter, always the longest and most entertaining of the bunch. A little bit of a table of contents that we'll be going through here. First up, some company updates from Jason directly, talking about encouraging people to continue pre-orders. I know the economy is a little bit uncertain right now, but definitely continue pre-ordering your models. If you can pre-order from dealers that don't let you put down a down payment, that's even better, because then there's no cost for you, and you can always cancel it when the models arrive. It's not the best practice to do, but it's an option for you. And if the economy sorts itself out, then you'll be all set once those do arrive. But it also helps them to ensure production numbers and make sure those models even get produced in the first place. Little update on warranty information. One of their service members retired and they're looking to pick up new members to the team, so that's really sweet. New warranty policy is in effect for 2 years after date of purchase, starting in March 2025. Beforehand, it is just a little bit dependent, and they'll honor that. Just make sure you save your receipts, as always, on all your models. They have also established a new warehouse in Buffalo, which is pretty cool. So most of the American models will be stored in this warehouse in Buffalo, and most of the Canadian stuff will be stored in Markham near Toronto. Hoping for an early April start for delivery on that. And speaking of that new warehouse in the US, they're looking for a warehouse and office manager. You can always go ahead and email them your resume or check out their website and get redirected to that jobs link. And of course, another update on tariffs here, how that's going to work. So, little summary, taking a look at one of the bottom paragraphs there. They don't have to charge you the full tariff cost. They can eat a little bit of it, but they can't eat the entire cost of the tariff just because of margins and things, because typically the manufacturer doesn't have as high of a margin as, say, a dealer or so. So just an update for you on that. Up next, we got some customer photos. Here's the recently delivered BART train, as well as a New Haven RDC. Always thought those were pretty neat. And a bunch of Erie Lackawanna units. Love that Erie Lackawanna E8 in the background there. And now on to an update here about the ST7, ST9, and ST10 project. The order deadline was pushed back a couple days to March 10th, the day this video is going live. So you got a couple hours after this video is live to make sure your pre-orders are in, but typically as long as they don't sell out beforehand, you should be okay if you pre-order later. But just to secure it, do it tonight. They do have some road number changes to better accurately represent the prototypes, specifically in the SD10s. So there's those changes there on those 3 locomotives, and the new artwork that reflects those changes. I really like the Milwaukee Road version. I don't think I'm going to pre-order it this time. I think I'll just wait until they're in stock, just because I don't want to have too much out there in the pre-order world. But I think this project looks really nice. Here are some renders of the models. And these updated SD10s. And a reminder of the features on these models for all of the models in the run. And of course, road-specific details. And of course, the paint scheme artwork. They've chosen some really cool ones to do in this run. And of course, we just talked about ScaleTrains doing their own run of SD7s and SD9s. And it's a good thing that these are different, so we don't have too much of competing releases. Although similar, they've chosen different road numbers and things. And of course, the SD10s are unique to this Rapido release. And next up, an update on the 44 tonners. This is a feature of the Middletown and New Jersey paint scheme, as well as the Greater Winnipeg Water District. Both of these paint schemes currently don't have a lot of pre-orders, so if you're interested in those, go ahead and put your pre-order in just to make sure they do make it to production. And a reminder about the exclusive models that Rapido offers. So through Otter Valley Railroad, there's a couple different 44 tonners and some pretty unique paint schemes. Up on top, that's Canadian National number 1, and then the Port Stanley Terminal Railroad's Winnie. From Train World, you can get the New York Dock Railway scheme in 3 different road numbers. And from Hobby Time, we've got the Vermont Railway up top, as well as the Connecticut Company, the Nickel Plate Road, and the Omaha, Lincoln, and Beatrice. There's a little bit about each unit themselves, little feature differences. Next up, a reminder of the 2 models with March order deadlines coming up. The Super Continental passenger cars, the second release of those, as well as the AAR box cars. First up, the new release of these Super Continental passenger cars. Here are some shots of the actual models from the first run, with a list of the upgrades such as track-powered interior lighting, which is pretty cool, new couplers and better trucks, and just overall a higher level of detail across the body. Here are some more shots of the interior, which is just insane, as well as the underbody from the first release. And a reminder of all of the paint schemes. First up, the lightweight coaches. All of these look so good. I wish I could buy 3 or 4 of every single one of them, but unfortunately my budget won't allow that. But these look amazing, and I'm sure they're going to be so much better than the first run too. And the first run was still well loved. Next car is the Duplex Sleeper, with a couple more American road names in this run. And finally, the 10.5 Sleeper. Just a couple different versions here. And Rapido is also offering 2 cars as part of their 20th anniversary. These are offered at the original prices, and you can only purchase them directly through Rapido because they are losing money on it, so it's more of a marketing tool, as they say, for it. So the Edmundston Duplex Sleeper and the Lark 10.5 sleeper. I've got both of those on order just because I thought they'd be pretty sweet. Hoping to run them kind of like a private car service, which will be really cool. Moving on, the next model with order deadlines is the AAR boxcar. Also order deadline of March 17th, just like those Super Continental passenger cars. Here are some new shots of pre-production samples, as well as the many different brake wheels, some underbody detail shots, and finally all of the paint schemes. Lots of different versions, lots of different road names and options for you, so there's got to be something for everyone who models this era. But from the sample shots, they did a little video about the pre-production samples, and they looked really good. Pretty standard Rapido quality. And there's all those paint schemes. Next up, the April order deadlines coming up. We've got 4 models with deadlines in April. First up, the FT locomotive. The order deadline for this has just been set for April 15th. Here's some shots of the pre-production samples. You can tell very easily what's plastic and what is a separately applied metal piece. Here is a B unit with the shell off, so you can see all the electronics inside. And all of the different paint schemes. I personally haven't been a big fan of FT locomotives. I'm absolutely an F7 or F9 kind of guy. Those are my favorite ones. But I still think this is a good model to add because it was, of course, the first F units offered, and everything evolved from these. And delivery for these is hopefully by the end of 2025. Next up, the Trenton Works 6348 cubic foot boxcar. Also a order deadline of April 15th. This is another one that includes the Railroad of Lies version. There's a prototype photo of one that they took this past week. And all of the paint schemes offered here. You'll see the Railroad of Lies there patched out, and they just have a painted undecorated version at the bottom as well. The next model with an order deadline in April, also April 15th, are the balloon top coaches. A little bit about the history on those, as well as some more prototype shots of these. Here's some production sample shots of the underside. Tons of detail, pretty standard for Rapido. There's all those seats with armrests. And finally, all the paint schemes here once again. And you'll notice at the bottom here, there's a couple painted unlettered versions to make your own railroad of your choosing. And next up, the next run of the Auto Flood hoppers. This is the Auto Flood 3. They've added up top there the Railroad of Lies in the blue, which looks really cool. Love the blue bearing caps on that. Here are the paint schemes. That BNSF one, the second one with 2 triangles marked on each end, that signals a double rotary dump car, and there's only one of those offered in the run. Everything else here is offered in a 6-pack. I'm not sure which paint scheme of these I'm going to pick up, but I will definitely be picking up something, because these are my dream hopper train, I think, right now. So maybe a bunch of Railroad Lives cars, who really knows. But still a little bit of time. Again, order deadline on these is April 15th. And everybody's favorite section, the arrival updates. Still looking at a couple models that are on hold until April as they move to the US warehouses, and then a bunch of other models on their way expected over the next couple weeks or so. We have some new photos. This is all of the Turbo 2.0, the new release of the Turbo Trains. And here we go, my favorite part, of course, the F40PHM-2 and -3s. So I have 213 featured right there on order. Some gorgeous detail on these locomotives. I'm very excited for them. I don't know if you can tell, it's only like I've talked about it every week. I also have 212 on order featured here. These look incredible. And of course, I've got 211, the CB&Q, that heritage unit, also on order. So I've got all of the paint schemes, so I'll give you the best review possible on these. But I absolutely cannot wait, but I still gotta wait till April while they move over to the US warehouse and then get shipped out. As for some other models, the H16-44s are also on their way. Here's a couple different paint schemes of those. I know these have been floating around in the delivery world for quite a while, so nice to see them finally be on their way. Here's some more detail shots. And next up, some factory photos. Here's some N-scale -8s, as well as the Santa Fe PAs. Here's some noses for those H16-44s. And unfortunately, they had to remake some shells for CP for that run, so might be a little bit delayed on that, not quite sure. They have hired a new employee named James. Here he is, hello. I'll move a little bit quickly through this last section here, just some nice pictures of the team during their ride on the Via Rails Ocean. Some nice shots. Of course, they were definitely taking notes for future cars, I assume. Still moving through, they did do a quick video on the Supercontinental passenger cars on the train. They stopped by to see one of their FPA-4s. And they're in good company there with a little deer. And that's all here from Rapido. We'll move on now to Broadway Limited. All right, welcome on over to Broadway Limited's newsletter. Mostly talking about the upcoming order deadline for their F3, F7, and 280 consolidations. It's coming up this week on March 13th, this Thursday. They've got a couple models here that they know have been selling fast, so if you'd like to pre-order them just to make sure you get them, especially those Norfolk Southern Executive and the Chicago and Northwestern Executive units, I know those are going to be extremely popular, so definitely get those pre-orders in just to make sure you reserve your spot. And here's some more renders of these locomotives. They look great once again. Here's some of the Atlantic coastline in a render in a roundhouse. And a reminder of all of the different paint schemes offered in this release. First up, the F3s. And the F7s. Of course, the Norfolk Southern units have a full ABBA set available to prototypically model those. And the Kenefick business cars are finally en route. Here's some more shots, different variations. I've got the UP4014 Tours drumhead on the way, so I'm very excited to see that finally arrive. But that's all from Broadway Limited for this week. We'll move on over to Athearn. All right, welcome on over to Athearn's newsletter for this week. First up, a 3D rendering of the new announcement of the new Carknocker lines 2494 Railgun Gondola. Here's the different paint schemes going by, flashing through. It's pretty easy to see the differences in this model, whether it be different patches, reflective stripings. Reminder, this model is factory deformed and sort of weathered, so the panels might not be perfect and the car itself appears to sag just a little bit, but they still promise that the model will run as expected. Did want to take a quick look here at or remind you about all of the different offerings in this run, because I think it'll be really cool and I'll probably be picking up maybe 6 of them in the future. The pre-orders are due on March 28th. And you can see some of them are offered in 3-packs, but most just have a single car offering in 3 road numbers, and a couple of data-only models as well. And a reminder of all the specific features if you're interested in those as well. But back to our newsletter here. Next model pre-order deadline, also March 28th. The new run of Genesis SD60M Triclopses. Here are all those paint schemes going by. We took a look at them in pretty good detail last week. Approximately 2 to 3 road numbers per road name in this release, and then a couple legendary livery, their fantasy option as well. They're also doing a new run of Genesis GP38-2s. You'll see that CPKC unit number 4412, the very first one painted in that new paint scheme. So I totally expect that one to be once again extremely popular and probably sell out very quickly. So if you do want that one and want to have the first GP38-2 in that scheme, I definitely recommend just pre-ordering that one. But there's also some neat short lines offered as well. Next up, some shipping updates. First, the Roundhouse 50-foot double sliding door boxcar, due for a arrival in April. No exact date yet, but sometime this month. Another Roundhouse model, the redesigned version of the streamlined passenger cars. They now have body-mounted couplers, so that's pretty cool, and they should still be good for 18-inch curves. So really nice passenger car for you. Again, not a ton of underbody detail since it's in just the Roundhouse line, but there's 3 car sets or additional coaches to make a 4-car train. Here is a very quick look at this release. The model that I might actually end up picking up are those Burlington Northern executive versions. I was not aware that they were making that model, and I haven't seen really anybody making those, so that could be a cool one to pick up. And then I have a nice 4-car set of those. But they've got the KCS versions in the executive scheme as well. But back over in the newsletter, just the feature of a model still in stock, the GP15-1 and GP15Ts. A couple legendary liveries in this release as well, just featuring that. We talked about it about 3 weeks ago when they were shipping. But that's all for the newsletter. Wanted to take a quick look at a model that we skipped over last week for time. So this was a model announced last week in the standard Athearn line, the 50-foot flat car with a Trojan airplane on top, the T-28Bs. So they've got many different versions on this airplane, and you can actually take the airplane off the flat car and then assemble it. They're selling the airplanes separately as well. They also have that fantasy, of course, Athearn Horizon Hobby plane. But there's some information on the flat cars themselves as well as the models. We'll go ahead and move on now over to Walthers' newsletter. Next up, we've got Walthers' e-update for the past week, starting off with a tariff notice. All prices after March 7th, 2025 will see whatever tariff percentage they come up with added onto that price, but any pre-orders placed before then will see the original pre-order price and won't have that added on, so at least that's kind of nice. They have a little manufacturer spotlight of Intermountain with both HO and N scale rolling stock. You can check out some of their models through Walthers. A reminder of the industrial switchers that they recently announced last month. This is the Plymouth version in the Walthers mainline release. Next up, another mainline model, the 40-foot early reefer, as they call it. That's one of my favorite schemes, the PFE orange. So pretty cool. I don't think I'll pick one up because it's for what I'm trying to model, but still a good model. And an update that Walthers is now offering Code 70 track, which is pretty cool. I don't know much about it, if it's any better than what's currently available, but they state it should be just about as good as their other track as well. And then some LED lighting here from Scene Master, their nano lights. These look really nice. I haven't gotten into the building of lighting sections on the layout that I'm still working on designing, so that's still pretty cool and should be a good option if you're looking for that. I'm not sure if the prices are good on these or comparable to other lighting, but just another option for you to consider. Atlas also recently delivered a new run of U30Bs, so here is the Chassis System CSX patch version. And a feature from Katie, their PS1 boxcar. The Rutland scheme looks real nice, and of course, since it's Katie, they come with Katie couplers out of the box guaranteed. But that is all I have for you this week. Thank you very much for joining. As I was recording this video, actually, the brand new CPKC units showed up, so I'm super excited for those. They look amazing, so expect a video very shortly about those, as well as those Rio Grande SD40T-2s. If you did make it this far, consider subscribing. Really appreciate it. It's completely free and you can always change your mind. So thank you very much in advance. Like the video if you enjoyed as well, and drop me a comment if anything here was interesting or if you're excited for anything we talked about today. With that, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.